cares. Again, anyone cares. All right. Let's do this. Fantastic. Another base hit there. Why so many text messages? John, you just sent us your save the date. Why do you need my address? Could be a very long night for the Detroit bullpen. Michael Fulmer didn't get out of the first inning.
I know.
I think it's going to be a very long night for the Detroit bullpen.
I think that already sealed it, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. That sucks. I like Michael Fulmer.
He hasn't been very good, though, for a long stretch.
A couple of years ago. Was he? He wasn't the AL Rookie of the Year, was he? Was he?
I thought he was the runner-up.
He was the runner-up, but to who?
I don't remember, but I remember... let me see.
Hold on, I got it. Oh, it was Fulmer. He did win.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Because he had a really good ERA. It was like in the high twos maybe. He was in the low twos for a long time, but I think it got bumped up a little bit.
Oh, that's right. He beat Gary Sanchez.
Oh yeah, I remember that year.
Thank God. Fuck Gary Sanchez.
That's right. Gary's been garbage ever since. So.
I mean, screw Gary Sanchez.
That is true.
Right. Anyway, well, we're live, so we can start recording anytime now. Another home run? Who hit that one? Xander. Yeah, it's going to be a real long night for the Tigers.
Are we watching this whole game?
Probably not. I think it's safe to say you can throw on Raymond now, right?
Yeah, I would say so. You could throw in Nets Bucks. That's on.
Yeah, Emily loves basketball. That'll be her first. She'll go right to Nets Bucks. It's her favorite thing. So I need to see Giannis play the third string guy from the Nets.
I would rather stab myself in the eye.
Well, we're live, so everybody just heard you say that. And by everybody, I mean these 0 people watching us right now.
And by everybody, he means me and Jake.
Yeah, by everybody, I mean the 2 of us. Was that the cookie sandwich? All right, let's do this. Let me try this. I'm trying to get one open here. Okay.
Oh, thanks for clapping for a nurse and healthcare professional.
I will restart the recording.
Oh, sorry.
As soon as I hit play, that was the first thing people heard. Look, free coffee.
I'm sorry.
That's why I probably get more listeners than people hearing my voice off the bat, so it happens. All right, let's try this again. 3, 2. All right, Dave, little different question for you this time around. The NFL draft was this past week. It was Thursday through Saturday rather. Who do you think did the best at the draft this week?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a few teams that were really good. Like the Chargers got Slater, who is like who could be a premier left tackle in a spot they really couldn't fill, and it's going to really help Herbert. So that you'd have to think they're a winner. I mean, I thought the Jets taking Elijah Moore in the second round was a really good pick. The Bears moving up for Justin Fields, I thought was awesome. I hope he succeeds, but we'll see. They have really bad luck and they're bad at developing quarterbacks. So, but I mean, I would say there's a lot of teams that did really well. Like the Dolphins did really well. Anytime you land a really premier talent, I think you have to be considered one of the best drafters. But I don't really have a problem with a lot of the teams. The Raiders obviously were probably the worst, but I would say most of the teams did really well.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, yeah, the Raiders trading up for Leatherwood was a really strange decision. I didn't really understand. I'm not even like the biggest I like mock drafts, but I'm not the biggest college mind. But it was still a little perplexing to me. They traded up, and even their fans were like, "Oh, okay, interesting." I think they drafted like what, 3 safeties?
Yeah, they drafted 3 safeties in a row, I think, for picks.
Like they drafted Morrig, and I'm like, that's a great pick. Like he fell, like that's good. And then they're like, oh well, we'll take 2 more. Like okay, all right, interesting. Yeah, I would say, like Jacksonville, obviously, like Jacksonville could have just picked Trevor Lawrence and then not picked again, and they would have had a great draft.
I agree. Yeah.
I think people are making a little too much fuss out of the ETN deal. I know you and I disagree on that a little bit, but I think people are making too much of a big deal of that. I know it's not great value, but and everybody's saying, well, they already have James Robinson. And I get it, but I mean, we've seen in New England how successful 2 back sets can be, and having 2 dynamic running backs in your backfield can be a real boon for an offense, especially when you've got Trevor Lawrence leading it. And I mean, honestly, I was thinking to myself today, I was listening to the Athletic football show or NFL show with Robert Mays and Nate Tice. And I was thinking about, like, who knows what's going to happen with the Deshaun Watson stuff, but the Jaguars could very well win that division this year.
I mean, that's not out of the realm possibility. I mean, if
Wentz gets up, but there's that,
I mean, if Wentz gets hurt and Tannehill takes 1 or 2 steps back with Arthur Smith in Atlanta, and the Texans, obviously Watson doesn't play, I think there's a real shot they could if Lawrence proves to be what people think he will be.
I'll go a step further than that. Carson Wentz could be fully healthy, and I still think it wouldn't matter.
I think the one thing with ETN is I don't think anyone doubts his talent. Like, he's a really good back. It's just, I think if you really wanted him, you could have got him with your 2nd round pick early in the 2nd round. And I still think it's probably not great value. But I think at the end of the first, that for a team like Jacksonville that has just a lot of needs, I mean, you were the 1st overall pick. You had the worst record in the league. So I just think if you're gonna build a team, running back really, really is not on the list of priorities when you have a guy that rushed for 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You never know what's going to happen with undrafted players. You could come back next year and not be it. You never know. I get it. I get why people were a little upset by that. But I think the rest of the draft was pretty solid too. Cisco, Walker Little. They got some really good players. I think they got some good depth. And it's unfortunate because I really, really want to root for Trevor Lawrence, but I just can't stand Urban Meyer. I just can't stand him. I really can't root for him. Like, I'll wish for Trevor Lawrence to succeed. It's kind of like the Kyler Murray, Steve Keim thing for me. Like, I really want Kyler to succeed, but I can't stand Steve Keim. It's similar with Urban Meyer. Like, I can't stand the guy. I've always thought he was overrated, and now he just walks into this plum situation with the number 1 overall pick and a roster that's got some good pieces on it. So, I mean, I think if things break right for them, they could definitely win that division. I mean, I still think the Titans are the team to beat there, even though you may not like Tannehill, but they have the best running back in football. They have some dominant wide receivers, and Vrabel's a good coach. So I still, this is what people come to this podcast for, is AFC South talk. But before we move on to our main topic, Dave, what did you think of the Patriots draft?
I loved it. I thought that they did a really good job, especially in the first 3 picks they had. Going into it, I think everyone knew that the odds of them making all of their picks was extremely low. Just from, they have a lot of people on their roster, they don't have a lot of holes, and they just aren't going to spend all their picks and draft guys that they're going to end up cutting. That's not valuable. So to move up and get Barmore in the 2nd round was a steal, because I know we were mocking him in the mid 1st round range. Yeah. And even if you factor in that he's the best defensive tackle in a light year, I mean, he's still probably in a good year, a mid to late 1st round pick solidly with his pass rush and upside. And you get him in the 2nd round. You don't even get him in the 1st pick. You get him to the point where you really don't have to move up that far and you get him. So it saves value both future and present. And I just thought overall, I mean, I know a lot of people wanted them to draft a receiver, but the value just for them wasn't there. And I'm all right with that. They got 2 guys. They're building their offense around running game and a tight end with 12 personnel. I'm all right with that. I think they had a good draft.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody would have wanted Justin Fields. That was what they wanted. And you cannot tell me that Justin Fields wasn't sitting there watching the draft and he was like, wow, I might fall to the Patriots. This is gonna be great. Like I'm so psyched. And then he sees the Bears trade up, and he's like, oh no, oh please no, please God, please. I hope they prefer Mac Jones. I really do. And then he goes to the Jets and Browns do exist, so maybe not. But one of the worst, maybe the worst team in the NFC at developing quarterbacks would be the Bears.
Yeah.
As we'll get into in a little bit, the Bears quarterbacks have been maybe the worst in the NFL. But anyway, it took me very little time to convince myself about Mac Jones. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? I think so. Is he going to be a 5-time All-Pro? Yes, probably. It all comes down to developing. It's like, do I think Mac Jones is going to be a better quarterback because he's going to be under Bill Belichick as opposed to Matt Nagy, who will be there for probably 2 more years? I mean, yeah, I think so. It comes down to who's developing him, and if McDaniels likes him and Belichick likes him, I mean, if he's what's going to get it done for you, then do it. They're a better team now with him than they are without him. I mean, it's undeniable. You could say whatever you want about him. You could say at the end of the day, they didn't give up anything but their pick to get Mac Jones. They didn't trade up to get him. They didn't move up to get him. They didn't give up any capital for Mac Jones. They just picked him. And I think that's fine by me. Really.
All right, so let's do quick rapid fire here with a few questions.
Oh God.
All right, so over under for Pro Bowls, Mac Jones 5.
Over.
Actually, no, let's say 4.5, so it's easier for over under.
I mean, as we'll get into, the Pro Bowl is not exactly the best barometer.
Exactly.
I'll say under just because the Pro Bowl, I don't like the Pro Bowl, so
All
sure.
right, so
I'll say just under. I'll say 4.
all right, over under 1.5 Super Bowls for Mac Jones.
Belichick coach until he's 90.
Belichick's there 5 years, a lot more.
Hell yeah.
So he's basically there for Mac Jones' rookie contract.
Let's go over, baby.
Over, wow, okay.
Hey, you didn't say Super Bowl wins.
That's true. All right, so who wins more Super Bowls in their career? Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Mac Jones? Keep in mind that if the Bears don't do great this year, there's a chance they could fire and clean house and get a new coach in there.
Oh, I don't think there's a chance. I think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a chance they get like an Arthur Smith that comes in there, and Justin Fields ends up becoming like an All-Pro.
Like an Arthur, because Arthur Smith already got hired.
No, he's not going there.
I mean, I think the obvious thing would be getting Eric Bieniemy in there.
Yeah, you get him in there, and all of a sudden the offense is humming along.
Then it's completely. You have somebody who actually knows how to run a team. Then yeah, you're in a great situation. I would probably say Lawrence still.
Yeah.
Just because talent wins out at the end of the day, and even if Mac Jones wins 2, maybe Lawrence wins 3. I mean, that's a lot to expect, even though he's the number 1 pick. It's tough to win a Super Bowl, man. But if I had to say, I'd probably say Lawrence is my pick. I really hope the Bears are just a bad situation, in my opinion. I hope they get the right people in there for Fields. If they get Bieniemy in there or something, then maybe I'll change my mind. But it is. I was thinking about it today. I know we're already running over here, but I was thinking about it today. Like, I think Derek Carr is over 30, right?
I don't think so.
No, can you look that up for me real quick?
Yeah, I think he's like 28 or 27.
Because he was drafted like 6 years ago, so he might not be 30 yet. You're right.
He's exactly 30 right now.
Okay.
He just turned 30 at the end of March.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think there are only 3 quarterbacks in the AFC that are 30 years or older.
You have Derek Carr,
Tannehill, and Roethlisberger. I think that's it. Think about it. Burrow, Jackson,
yeah,
Mayfield, Wentz, Lawrence now.
And then you have in the West, you have Mahomes,
Herbert. Yeah, Mahomes, Herbert, Locke, I guess.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think is we'll say Locke's the starting quarterback for argument's sake, and then the entire AFC East is under 30 because I'm counting Mac Jones, not Cam Newton. So it's pretty crazy that it's a lot of youth in that conference now, and I'm sure Ben Roethlisberger is not long for football after this year. So
that's true.
Dwayne era of Pittsburgh. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they start off slow and they just decide to tank and go for. I'm about to reveal my big Mock Draft Knowledge 2022, Sam Howell or that other guy that's mocked to go number 1?
Yeah, Sam Howell's going to be good. He's good at UNC, but
but I really hope next year we hear all the same shit we heard about Justin Fields and the Ohio State quarterbacks. I hope we hear the same thing about UNC and Mitchell Trubisky going number 2 or 3 overall. I hope we hear that too, because it should be all fair.
Oh, undoubtedly we won't though.
Yeah, if you're going to be scared of that, you should be scared about a UNC quarterback being the next Mitch Trubisky, which is not a good thing. But anyway, Dave, our main topic today is about football, if you couldn't guess. We had this idea to go through each franchise. After Fields got drafted, I thought to myself, I was like, I think I texted you and I was like, what will it take for Justin Fields to be the best quarterback in this franchise's history? Like, not a lot, honestly. Like, we'll get into the Bears in a little bit, but it got me thinking, who is the best quarterback in each franchise's history? So what we did is we did 4 tiers. We have no-brainers, which is that's self-explanatory. The thanks for playing, which is the decision's made, but there's at least somebody else we should reference. I could be swayed, where I have my pick in mind, but if Dave swayed me, I could understand it. And then we have legitimate arguments where I really don't know who I would go with, and we'll probably play that out. So, Dave, I'm assuming we're going to start with the no-brainers because that's the most fun. Just get the easy ones out of the way. So we have 7 here. And these are alphabetical order, as you could probably fathom by listening to the teams we're going through. So first we have the Buffalo Bills. I know this is just going to rip Steve Scott's heart out if he's listening, but it's a no-brainer to me that Jim Kelly is the best quarterback in Bills history. Could Josh Allen get there at some point? Maybe. But Jim Kelly did make 4 straight Super Bowls. He was the catalyst of that offense. Yes, Thurman Thomas was very important too. But Jim Kelly has over 35,000 passing yards. 237 touchdowns, went to 4 Super Bowls, 5 Pro Bowls, 1 first-team All-Pro. I mean, it's a thin roster, really, beyond Jim Kelly. So I think for me, this was a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen, like you said, maybe he gets there eventually, but it's way too early to have Josh Allen as the best. Jim Kelly was really, really good for 10 years, and there's just it's too easy. There's no real 1B to Jim Kelly.
No. And like Josh Allen's, is he more physically gifted than Jim Kelly? Yeah, I mean, Jim Kelly's not, barreling over linebackers on the sidelines. Like he's not going to do that. But Jim Kelly was, a very dominant quarterback in his day. And like I said, 4 straight Super Bowls, not easy because it's never been done before or since. Next up, Dave, the Denver Broncos. And that is obviously Jake Plummer. I'm like, hey, it's John Elway. So John Elway threw over 50,000 yards, 300 touchdowns, 9 Pro Bowls, 2-time Super Bowl champ. And a stat that came out when I was doing my research on this, Dave, no other Broncos quarterback has ever thrown for 20,000 yards in their career other than John Elway. I think that's all you can say about that.
I mean, the only person you can say really to me that had an impact on them was Peyton Manning, but he was there just such a short amount of time. And by the end of it, he really just kind of fell apart. His arm deteriorated with his neck problems. And it's just there's no real other person to discuss. I mean, the last few years, you've seen Locke, Osweiler, Keenum, Trevor Siemian. Like, there's no, and then there was Jeff Driscoll. Like, there's just so many bums and guys that have gone in and out there. You have Jake Plummer from years past. So it's pretty easily one of the greatest QBs.
Let's not forget Kyle Orton.
Exactly. Hey, Kyle Orton was a solid QB.
And Tim Tebow.
Yeah. The tight end playing quarterback.
Here's a conspiracy theory. I got one for you. What if John Elway's not this horrendous talent evaluator we think he is, and he's purposely picking these bad quarterbacks just to make people realize how good they had it when he was there?
Nothing would surprise me. No.
I mean, also, how could I don't know if you mentioned him, but how could we forget first round pick Paxton Lynch?
I know that they moved up in front of the Cowboys to take.
Might be like the low point of Elway's tenure as the GM. Emily found that hysterical. Anyway, Dave, the Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino. Look, all due respect to Bob Greasy, all due respect to Earl Morrall, all due respect to Chad Pennington. I mean, come on. Like, if you're arguing, you can be an old timer if you want. I respect Bob Greasy and what he did and everything, but Dan Marino was the first type of quarterback we ever saw like him. And I say we loosely because Dave and I were about a decade out from being alive, but still.
Yeah. I mean, Dan Marino was awesome. He could throw the football. He was one of the best pure throwers of the football that the NFL has ever seen. And, you know, it's a shame, and I say that loosely, that he didn't win a Super Bowl, but he's still easily the best in their franchise. I mean, if you put him in most situations, he'd be the best of most franchises. So easy choice.
60,000 passing yards. He retired as the all-time leader in touchdown passes, if I'm not mistaken. 420 of them, 9 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, MVP, and got the Dolphins to a Super Bowl. Also, he was the only team that beat the 85 Bears. Fun fact. That was worded weird. Yes, I understand. He was the only team. There was obviously a team effort there, but there's a reason Dan Marino was the guy that did it. Dave, this one might be a bit controversial. It might be, but you looked at it. You agreed. We agreed it was our consensus pick. Minnesota Vikings. Fran Tarkenton. So the Vikings haven't had a great history of quarterbacks. And if you have an issue with this pick, my question would be, who is your best quarterback then? The only other person that comes to mind is Culpepper. Like, that's the only one I can think of. It's certainly not Kirk Cousins or Brad Johnson or Sam Bradford. It's got to be Tarkenton.
Yeah. And Culpepper's prime was really, really good, but it just wasn't long. Right. He had injury issues and he had inconsistencies that kind of plagued him. You know, if he plays another 7 years in that prime instead of like 3, you know, maybe we're talking about a different story. But I mean, Fran Tarkenton was pretty amazing in his own right. He won an MVP. He's a Hall of Famer. Like, you know, it's hard to go against someone that's literally a Hall of Famer and has won MVPs. He was an All-Pro once. Been to Pro Bowls. I mean, back then I think they held a little more value than they do now. But you know, it's anyone that thinks otherwise. I kind of question that.
Not to mention, like, he also changed how the game was played at his position. A dual threat quarterback in the mid 60s and then again in the 70s. I mean, he's actually able to run the ball. So I think Tarkenton, while he's not, maybe not a sexy pick, but he is the pick. He is the best quarterback to ever play for the Vikings. And you can't knock him for not winning a Super Bowl because no Vikings quarterback has ever done that. So, hey, they should have been there. They should have been there against Elway that just couldn't get the job done.
Don't see that changing anytime soon either, though. But
so, Dave, I'm about to drop a knowledge bomb on you. Not sure if you've heard of this next guy. This Tom Brady fella in New England. Tom Brady is the definition of no-brainer when it comes to this. My opinion on Drew Bledsoe is very well known. Dave knows my opinion on Drew Bledsoe. And that is, I'm not really a fan of him, honestly. I've been dragged on Twitter for saying it. I'm just really not a fan. I think he's kind of overrated. I mean, he was very important to the Patriots, trying to, get back into the mainstream and be relevant again. And I understand that. He deserves the ups for that. But in my opinion, Drew Bledsoe's not even a Hall of Good player. He's just a fine quarterback. And that's really all I got to say about him. I mean, he wasn't very good in the Super Bowl the one time they got there. And he's just, I don't know, Dave, I know you probably disagree with me about how severe I'm being about Drew Bledsoe, but where do you stand on him?
No, I mean, I think Drew Bledsoe was a really, really solid quarterback. And I think part of the issue with just overall with having trouble rating where he falls is he happened to play in an era that was just before our generation, really. Like, and to play in the late 90s, I mean, most of us in the early 90s are, we're 6, 7, 8 years old. And even if you include, the early 2000s when he played and got knocked out of the game, I mean, he's followed up by the greatest quarterback of all time. So all of our thoughts and processes and analysis are skewed because we watched Tom Brady play for 20 years. It's tough to think back to life before Tom Brady. Like, even now, like watching Cam Newton for a year, it's still hard to think back to what it was like before Tom Brady. Like you compare everything you see, whether it's the Vikings Packers or whether it's the Bears Chargers or whether it's the Chiefs Raiders. Like you compare every quarterback you see to Tom Brady. In college, you do it too. Like you watch the game, you're like, wow, I don't know, but this QB isn't that good. And then you look and you think about it. It's like, all right, we're watching the greatest of all time. How can you really comment on someone else?
Good. It's a good segue back into the main discussion of Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback in Patriots history. I mean, come on, it is as much a no-brainer as anything. 541 touchdowns with the Patriots. He won 6 Super Bowls. He was a 3-time MVP. I'm almost insulting him by reading those stats. Like, I don't need to read those stats to you. If you're listening to our podcast, you know that we're pretty familiar with Tom Brady, and you probably are too. So we won't even insult you by going further on this. Tom Brady, check him out if you haven't heard of him. Best quarterback in Patriots history. Not a bad player. Speaking of no-brainers, like real no-brainers, would be Drew Brees with the Saints. I mean, if you want to know, if just one stat you need to know why Drew Brees is the best quarterback in Saints history, it's not that he threw for almost 70,000 yards. It's not that he almost completed 69% of his passes as a quarterback there, and that he threw almost 500 touchdowns and won a Super Bowl. It's that Dave, do you know who threw the third most passing yards in Saints history?
Aaron Brooks.
It is Aaron Brooks. Yeah, that's all you need to know right there. I don't need to tell you anything else. Second is Archie Manning, who I could not stand less. I've never liked Archie Manning. I think he's like the worst. And yeah, I mean, congratulations to the second best quarterback in Saints history. It means nothing because Drew Brees is the best that will ever wear a Saints uniform, probably. I mean, come on, 12-time Pro Bowler. It is pretty crazy he never won an MVP, but that is pretty much by being a byproduct of playing in the same era as Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, come on. It's tough. And even Mahomes to an extent, because I think he played pretty well the year Mahomes won the MVP.
That is true, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's Drew Brees was awesome, and it's really interesting to think, like the Dolphins went Culpepper instead of Drew Brees, and Culpepper blows out his knee and tears like 7 ligaments and dislocates his knee, and it's just in shambles. He's never the same guy. And Drew Brees, they're worried about his shoulder and how the damage is going to heal, and he ends up going to New Orleans and basically becoming one of the greatest passers of all time, finishing with almost exactly 68,000 yards. Sean Clayton would be a little disappointed with that number, but
yeah.
Overall, it's just he had an outstanding career too. And I think when we look back on it, we'll kind of say that he was a little underrated from his time, just from purely just talking about Brady, Manning, and Rodgers. I think that Drew Brees kind of was a little bit left in the dark a little bit. And I think a lot of the credit kind of went to the offense that he played in, playing in a dome, playing against opponents that necessarily didn't have great defense. Atlanta hasn't had a great defense for a long time. So I think that he's going to be a little underrated, but he was just an awesome QB.
And yeah, but Dave, Nick Saban wanted him. Nick Saban wanted Drew Brees. Remember.
Of course.
It's almost like the Russell Westbrook effect, though. Like, you're going to look back and be like, this dude was a freak of nature when he was playing, but nobody really gave it its due. Drew Brees less because people definitely call him out as one of the best ever. But anyway, in the last no-brainer, Dave, is the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson, who is the only active quarterback. I'm sorry, Tom Brady is still active. But Russell Wilson's only been in the league for less than a decade. But he is already clearly the best Seahawks quarterback of all time. I mean, you could argue how important he was to that one Super Bowl they won, but very good player that year, and he's only gotten better since. He is the only active quarterback who's in a system that wants him to fail, which is incredible. 267 touchdowns, 81 picks, 7 Pro Bowls, 31 game-winning drives, 4,500 rushing yards to go with 33,000 passing yards, pretty much 34,000 passing yards. I mean, again, it's the Tarkenton thing. Who is your pick if it's not Russell Wilson? The only other people we've written down here are Jim Zorn and Matt Hasselbeck, but, let's be real here. Come on. You can like them all you want, but it's Russell Wilson. It's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Russell Wilson. I don't really want to hear arguments for the other people. I mean, Matt Hasselbeck and Jim Zorn both were, solid QBs. Like, Matt Hasselbeck led them to a Super Bowl and got destroyed in the Super Bowl against the Steelers. Like, we could talk about that. We could talk about Jim Zorn. Neither one of them are Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson still has a lot of years left under him. So he won a Super Bowl, something that neither of those guys did, and that right there, I think, already puts him above.
All right, Dave, moving into thanks for playing. So this is where we have our pick in mind, but there is somebody who deserves at least a little more airtime than we gave Jim Zorn or Dante Culpepper. So we'll start with the Carolina Panthers. Our pick for the best quarterback there is Cam Newton, which, yeah, again, the Panthers bench is pretty thin here. It's pretty much Newton or Jake Delhomme. And I'm not going to declare Jake Delhomme the best anything ever. Maybe not even the best guy named Jake Delhomme, probably. I mean, there's probably somebody else out there better. But he was a decent enough quarterback for the the Panthers. 22 game-winning drives, went to a Pro Bowl, shockingly. 120 touchdowns, almost 20,000 yards. But Cam Newton's the better player. He won an MVP. He also got to a Super Bowl and lost, just like Jake Delhomme did. 29,000 passing yards to go with 4,800 rushing yards. One of the most dominant dual-threat quarterbacks, especially in his prime, that we've probably ever seen. It's probably Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick, and then a close third would be Cam Newton, especially his MVP season. Like, that season alone is enough to push him over Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Newton, that one, like you said, the one MVP season, I think that just speaks to it already. Because people that like to talk about Cam Newton and how overrated he is, I mean, his weapons that year weren't great. Like, let's call it what it was. He had Greg Olsen, but that's pretty much it. And his offensive line, the left tackle, was Michael Orr, who hasn't really been around very often. So, or recently, I should say. But Cam Newton, we forget how great he was just because his body's kind of let him down over the last few years. He's had surgeries, and we don't really know what he looks like fully healthy. Like, maybe he is fully healthy. Maybe his body is just completely done. We don't know. But his peak was one of the best peaks that the league has seen as far as dual threat guy. Like, obviously he's not in the level of, a Brady, a Rodgers, a Manning, a Marino, an Elway, a Steve Young, a Joe Montana, but he was pretty damn good at his peak, and he proved it when he led him to Super Bowl.
Yeah. And that's all I got to say about that, because I really don't like talking about the Panthers. They just aren't really a good franchise, so they haven't really done much. Unless you're a big Steve Buerlein fan, which, sure, if you like him, that's great. But it's Cam Newton, and that's really all I got to say about that. Dave, you moved the Lions into this category, as well as the next team, but we'll start with the Lions. To me, it was really only Matt Stafford or Bobby Lane, and Bobby Lane did win 2 NFL championships, which is, for the Detroit Lions says a lot because they've been nothing but mired in misery for decades and decades. He was the one that placed the curse on them in the first place. And 118 touchdowns, 242 picks. It was a different era. It was really just a completely different era that he played in. But all due respect to him. But I mean, Matt Stafford is the best Lions quarterback ever. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah, I think when we look back on it, Matt Stafford's another guy that's going to be underrated. He's just been really, really good for a long time. Almost 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, 45,000 yards, and 38 game-winning drives for a team that had trouble winning games for a long time. So you're looking at it where Matt Stafford hasn't won a championship, but he also got them to the playoffs a few times. He made a Pro Bowl, and he's been one of the toughest QBs in the entire league. Routinely playing through like dislocated shoulders, broken ribs, torn knees, foot problems, whether it's turf toe or whether it's a high ankle sprain. He's just been like a durability warrior, and who knows what happens if he gets Calvin Johnson for longer, or if he, Javid Best doesn't have head problems, or there's this whole list of things that could happen. Maybe they invest better in their defense, or their coaches don't act like nut jobs like Matt Patricia, or they keep Jim Caldwell a little longer. Like,
or what if they get that pass interference call against the Cowboys in the first round of the playoffs?
Exactly. Like, there's a lot of things that could have happened differently, and that's not to say that other teams don't have that. Every team has those kind of things, but I just think when we look back on it, Matt Stafford's incredibly talented, and I think we'll see that with the Rams this year. I just don't think we've appreciated enough with the Lions.
I mean, this is the only franchise in NFL history that has seen one of the best running backs and one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen just step away in their prime and say, "I'm good. Like I'm all set with playing anymore for this franchise. We're good. We're good." The Green Bay Packers. So it again, all the old timers probably not going to like that or discounting Bart Starr, which we respect Bart Starr and what he did for the Packers and how important he is to that franchise. But this is a two-horse race between Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and it's not a very close two-horse race because as great as Brett Favre was, he won a Super Bowl, 61,000 passing yards, load of touchdowns, a load of picks, three MVPs, Super Bowl champ, like I said. I mean, come on, man. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. I guess Brett Favre is too, but Rodgers is just a different animal. And I say that as somebody who does not like Aaron Rodgers one bit.
Yeah, I mean, Brett Favre was obviously a special player. I just think that, like, when you talk about teams and how fundamentally sound they are, one of the first things that comes up is turnovers. And when you look at the turnover differentials, like, Brett Favre threw 286 interceptions. Aaron Rodgers has thrown 89. He hasn't even hit 100 yet. Like, you know, you can hate all Aaron Rodgers all you want as a person. You can hate him as a player. Maybe he whines too much. Maybe he's just a little different than most people. Like, whatever it is, fine. Like, you can dislike him, whatever it is. But, I mean, the guy doesn't turn the ball over. And, you know, you can complain about whatever, but the ability is there. Like, he can make all the throws. He's won a Super Bowl. Like, he's already won as many Super Bowls and MVPs as Brett Favre did. And he's played on as many All-Pro teams. So, like, we're talking about a guy that's been special ever since he came into the starting job. And I just think when you look at it, he's a guy that has, you know, a third of the interceptions as Brett Favre. And he has almost as many touchdowns. Like, how do we justify putting Brett Favre ahead of him? We can't.
Yeah. The Colts. A lot of people out there are probably not going to like this either, but Peyton Manning is the best Colts quarterback in history. And we can talk about Johnny Unitas for a second. Great name, awesome name, better name than Peyton Manning. He's got that. And it's important to realize how important Johnny Unitas was in NFL history. Like a quarterback, you know, ahead of his time. Almost 40,000 passing yards, you know, 287 touchdowns and 38 game-winning drives, you know, 10 Pro Bowls, 3-time MVP, 3-time NFL champ, won a Super Bowl. He really was ahead of his time because quarterbacks just weren't built like Johnny Unitas back in that time. So he definitely deserves to be mentioned. It's just Peyton Manning passed him by. I mean, it's clear. I mean, Peyton Manning threw 54,000 passing yards, 65% completion rate, almost one short of 400 touchdowns to 198 interceptions. So, you know, again, 4-time MVP with the Colts, 45 game-winning drives, won a Super Bowl. So it's, as much as I like Johnny Unitas and how important he was to football history, it is clearly Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton is just really, really special again. Obviously, at different times, you can't compare yardage, can't really compare any of that stuff. But as good as Johnny Unitas was, Peyton Manning was one of the guys that really made, you know, adjustments at the line super important again. And he just was so accurate and so disciplined throwing the football. He's easily the pick. And Johnny Unitas, like you said, has a really strong place in football history, but he's just not Peyton Manning.
The Chiefs. I'm ready to say it, Dave. Are you ready to say it?
I think probably just from the fact that there's not really a ton of other options. Like Len Dawson, good, but great? I don't know.
He's only been in the league for 3 years, folks, but Mahomes is the best quarterback the Chiefs have ever seen. I mean, we could have done that a year ago, and that was still.
I think we have to preface it by saying as long as he plays and doesn't get hurt.
Yes. As long as he continues to play and plays at least, you know, a decade in the NFL or something, he'll play longer than that. Don't worry. But as long as he at least plays, you know, like a decade in the NFL, then he will most certainly retire the best quarterback in Chiefs history. He'll probably move into the no-brainer category by then, but just because Len Dawson was such a successful quarterback with the Chiefs, we have to mention him in the thanks for playing category.
Yeah, I just think we have to specify because we're definitely in an era where players take greater care of themselves, and we've seen it with a lot of star players like Andrew Luck, Luke Kuechly, Chris Borland, like you just Calvin Johnson. You see it with guys more now, retiring early. So if Mahomes can play till at least he's say 30, then he's the greatest quarterback the Chiefs have had. But if he pulls an Andrew Luck and decides that football isn't for him, he's made enough money, he's okay paying back a signing bonus, then I think that opens the door for Len Dawson to be the best. But as far as peak play, like we've never seen a guy like him, like Mahomes.
Where are we next? I have definitely skipped somebody. Oh, we skipped 2 teams. Oh boy. The LA Rams, the St. Louis Rams, the LA Rams again. This is a tough one because this is another sneaky, really bad franchise for quarterbacks. The only other guy worth mentioning here is Roman Gabriel. He did throw for 22,000 yards, 119 starts, 154 touchdowns, which is the most in Rams history, if you can believe it. 3 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro. But at the end of the day, Kurt Warner is the best quarterback in Rams history. Won an MVP, won a Super Bowl, and he just looked really good doing it out there. His story is incredible too. Obviously, everybody knows it by this point. 102 touchdowns to 65 picks. He was only there for a brief amount of time, but that brief amount of time was enough for me.
Yeah, I have a lot of great quarterback history, but like I think Mark Bulger is probably the next guy on the list, which is kind of sad. Maybe Jared
I would say Gabriel.
Like, I don't know where we go.
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, Gabriel's second. I'm saying like third and fourth. Like,
okay, I got it.
Where we're going
Not
after
Jared
that. Like, there's just not a lot of options. Yeah. But I mean, you have to take Kurt Warner just from the fact he won a Super Bowl. I think he goes next.
Yeah, I mean, if Goff won a Super Bowl, he might be second, but that doesn't matter. Kurt Warner will still be first. Let's get this over with. The New York Giants. Yeah, I mean, it's really between Eli Manning and Phil Simms, and Eli Manning they're both 2-time Super Bowl champions, but that's misleading because Phil Simms wasn't the quarterback for one of those, at least in the Super Bowl. Eli Manning is a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, 37 game-winning drives, 366 touchdowns to 244 interceptions, 57,000 passing yards. Phil Simms was a really good quarterback for the Giants, but Eli Manning surpassed him.
Yeah, he won two Super Bowls, so I mean, I think we kind of have to put him.
Yes, exactly. Not Phil Simms won 2, but really only won 1.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that Eli was one of the more important people on that offense in those years, and I think that carries a lot of weight. So I think Eli has to be the pick.
That's all we need to say about that. All right, let's somehow get through this one. Joe Namath is the best quarterback in Jets history. Why? Well, let me tell you why, Dave. He won a Super Bowl. That's all I got for you. Because Joe Namath threw 45 more interceptions than he did touchdowns. Joe Namath is a Hall of Famer. Why? Because he guaranteed a win in the Super Bowl once. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. Yes, I understand that was big because the AFL had gotten trounced in the first 2 Super Bowls. Yes, I understand. I know. And Joe Namath is the best quarterback in Jets history. I just think that's a very big indictment of Jets history.
Yeah, it's tough recently, like to find a guy that anywhere in the past 20 years that's anywhere near important. Like Chad Pennington, I guess. Mark Sanchez led a couple AFC Championship teams, but like none of those guys are going to be confused with top of the franchise QB guys. So it's really Joe Namath, which is kind of sad because we're talking about a guy that finished his career in 75. I mean, that's 46 years ago. So, I guess we go Joe Namath just from, we have nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, look over over here, the second guy is Ken O'Brien. That's the second guy I can think of. He had, he went to a Pro Bowl. two of them actually. 24,000 yards, 124 touchdowns. If Mark Sanchez wins a Super Bowl, then maybe he's second, but only one Jets quarterback has ever gotten to the Hall of Fame. And I'm not counting Brett Favre. Only Joe Namath's the guy I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah, Joe Namath, congratulations. You can wear your fur coat to the induction ceremony. The Steelers, Dave. This is another one that comes down to two guys. And it's Bradshaw and it's Big Ben. Except it really isn't, because it's Big Ben. Terry Bradshaw is another guy that had sneaky bad numbers in his career. He did happen to play with one of the best defenses of all time, which, that does help mask a lot of the issues. He threw almost as many touchdowns as interceptions in his career. Only made one first-team All-Pro, only made 3 Pro Bowls, 51.9% completion rate. I understand that's kind of how it was back then, and completion rate's just better nowadays. But Big Ben's thrown twice as many passing yards. He's won 2 Super Bowls himself. Ironically enough, has not won the MVP either time. 6 Pro Bowls, 46 game-winning drives, twice as many as Terry Bradshaw. Almost 400 touchdowns, 200 interceptions. I hate Ben Roethlisberger as a person, so I want to make this quick. But, yeah, he's better than Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Bradshaw kind of just was there to me. I don't really consider him a great quarterback, but it's Ben Roethlisberger pretty easily. He's obviously been very durable. He's won them a couple Super Bowls. That's all you really need to say.
Yeah, let's move on from that. The Niners. People might have been surprised to see us not in the no-brainer category, but you can't say it's a no-brainer when you at least have to mention Steve Young. Steve Young's not better than Joe Montana, but he did win a Super Bowl. He did, he had some really, really good years in San Francisco. I don't think anyone's going to confuse him for Joe Montana, but he was able to follow up and win a Super Bowl with the 49ers. And Y.A. Tittle does deserve to be mentioned. I don't think anyone's going to pick him, but for his time and his era, he was a really damn good quarterback. But it's Joe Montana. I mean, Joe Montana, before Tom Brady came along, was the best quarterback of all time, and he was going to be the best quarterback of all time until Brady finally usurped him. But played 13 years in San Fran, 35,000 yards, 244 passing touchdowns, 4-time Super Bowl champ, famously never lost in the Super Bowl, Dave. Everybody knows that. 7 Pro Bowls, 2 MVPs, 3 first-team All-Pros. You could say his accolades all day long. Everybody knows he's the best Niner quarterback ever.
Yeah, I mean,
until Trey Lance lights it up, he's the best quarterback.
Steve Young did have an impressive touchdown-interception ratio, more than Joe Montana, but Joe Montana's obviously played his best ball when it mattered most. So Joe Montana pretty obviously gets the top spot, but it's pretty impressive the fact that Steve Young was they had that guy ready to go. Like, people think Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers was pretty great, but I would argue that Joe Montana, Steve Young was even better.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Lastly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Best quarterback in their history is probably Tom Brady, honestly. The only guy that comes to mind is Jameis Winston, and I can't say that. Almost 20,000 passing yards for Jameis Winston. Shockingly, only threw 88 interceptions. I know he played there for only 4 or 5 years, but I feel like it would have been more. Did make a Pro Bowl, and people expect a lot of him for being a number 1 pick. Jameis wasn't that bad for them, especially given their history of quarterbacks. Josh Freeman, Brad Johnson wasn't that bad the year they won the Super Bowl, but Brad Johnson's not going to be mistaken for a Hall of Famer. Testaverde, just a laundry list of bad quarterbacks. Jameis is better than almost all of them. But Tom Brady came along in 1 season, won a Super Bowl, and threw for 40 touchdowns. I mean, we might sound like homers, but who's better?
Yeah, there's, this franchise is gross, and that's pretty much it. It's Brady, that's it.
And Brady's going to play there probably at least another 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. And he's probably going to, let's be real, probably win another Super Bowl while he's there. So just adding to his case. All right, Dave, we're on to I Could Be Swayed. So this is one where I have an idea of who I'm going to pick, and you have an idea of who you're going to pick, but I guess I could be swayed on this one. Oh, you know what? Is that where it comes from? I could be swayed?
Maybe.
Never thought of that. I never thought of that. So the Falcons we'll start off with. This comes down to two guys for me. For me, it's either Matt Ryan or Michael Vick. And yes, I understand that Matt Ryan has thrown for 5 times as many passing yards as Michael Vick in his career. But Michael Vick has probably run for 10 times as many rushing yards as Matt Ryan has in his career. So, Dave, I'll let you go first because I'm a nice guy. I'm assuming you're going to roll with local boy BC's own Matt Ryan, as you probably should, but I think there's a more compelling case here than you might think.
No, I mean, I agree with the fact that Michael Vick he kind of changed the game and revolutionized being able to scramble, and he was dynamic, and he was one of the first guys to be able to, like, he wasn't just mobile, he was, like, faster than secondary guys. Like, he was fast. And his arm was, like, incredibly strong. Like, it wasn't always super accurate. He got more accurate as the years went on, and with Philly, he was actually really, really accurate. But, like, he was a really special guy to watch, and he was really, really fun. But I think you have to go Matt Ryan just because, I mean, he did get them to a Super Bowl. Like, he didn't win it, and it was, you could argue a lot of it was his own doing that allowed the Patriots to come back. But, like, Michael Vick never got them there, and he had his fair share of issues with turnovers. And I think Matt Ryan has done a really good job over his 13 or so years of being a starter, where he hasn't really turned the ball over. He's over 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and he's thrown for 55,000 yards, and he's led a dynamic offense for the majority of his career. So I'd go Matt Ryan.
Yeah. You're right. I definitely think Vic definitely deserves a mention. So I'm happy we at least got him out there. But I think you're right. I think Matt Ryan's probably the better player, better quarterback, and he's a BC boy. So, throw him out there. Dave, the Baltimore Ravens. So, again, it comes down to two guys. Pretty dismal quarterback history for the Ravens. It's either Joe Flacco or Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson with the same caveat as Patrick Mahomes, where, he has to play at least probably a decade or, have a legitimately long-ish NFL career to really qualify. Dave, I think I'm going to go Lamar Jackson here, honestly. Yes, Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Yes, Joe Flacco was really good in that one playoff run. Yes, Joe Flacco existed for the Ravens otherwise. But Lamar Jackson is a special talent, which is nothing you could say about Joe Flacco. He's not a special talent. He was a good player for a little while, won him a Super Bowl. They had a lot of help to win that Super Bowl on defense too. But I can't in good conscience say that Joe Flacco is a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, even right now. Like, Lamar Jackson call me a prisoner of the moment if you want, but the guy's already scored almost 90 touchdowns total in his career between passing and rushing. Only quarterback to ever rush for 1,000 yards twice, and the guy is, what, Dave, like 24?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, 24, and he's already done all that. Other than the Super Bowl, it's more than Joe Flacco has probably ever accomplished in his career. And I know you'll probably disagree with me, but I'm going Lamar Jackson here.
I'm going to go with Joe Flacco just because it's too early to pick Lamar Jackson. It's like, if he won a Super Bowl, I could pick him like I did Mahomes.
How many MVPs does Joe Flacco have, Dave?
He has none.
How many first-team All-Pros does Joe Flacco have?
He has none.
How many Pro Bowls does Joe Flacco have?
I don't think he has.
He has 0.
Yeah, I was going to say he has 0. No, I'm not saying Lamar won't ever take that spot. He probably is one more season away from doing it, even without a Super Bowl or MVP. But even if he didn't have either of those things, but even though he has an MVP already, but I need to see 3 years of it. I think 3 years is like the minimum without a Super Bowl. I think a Super Bowl carries a lot of weight, specifically for quarterbacks in the NFL, like more than almost any other sport. And we've seen it held against QBs, like we've seen it held against Dan Marino, and as a really big point for Joe Montana and for Tom Brady, and not for Peyton Manning. Like, we've seen it held against quarterbacks before. So I think Joe Flacco has a lot of flaws, and Lamar Jackson is probably, and I even take back probably, is already more fearsome and dynamic and exciting than Joe Flacco ever was with his heave it up 50 yards and try to draw pass interference. But yeah, I think you still need to give it maybe another year. And if Lamar Jackson has the same year as he's had the last 2 years, I think you have to give it to him.
The Texans talk about a dismal quarterback history, and it's trending in the wrong direction right now. There's really only two guys that come to mind here. Dave, do you know that Matt Schaub made 2 Pro Bowls in Houston?
That's crazy to me.
Not just 1, 2, multiple Pro Bowls for Matt Schaub. Multiple. I know Pro Bowls mean nothing, but even though they mean nothing, I still can't believe that he made 2 of them. Look, Deshaun Watson is definitely more talented, probably already better, but we have no idea what's going to happen with his future in Houston. We have no idea. I mean, it doesn't look great right now. With all the allegations against him, we don't know what's going to happen. And I think it's still too early to call it just because of that, because we don't know what his future looks like in Houston.
Yeah. And I just don't know really like how you could give it to Deshaun at this point with what's coming out about him. Like, we don't know if it's true or not, obviously, because you have to let everything play out, but it doesn't look good right now. And I think that holds enough weight where I think you have to go Matt Schaub just by default.
Yeah, the allegations look really bad. I mean, there's just so many of them against him, and yeah, I mean, obviously they'll all play out, but it does not look great. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't look great at all, and you can't, in good conscience, say that he's the best when he's only played there a few years, and we don't know what his future holds for the team. So, yeah, it's just an absolute mess. It looks very bad, very, very bad for him. So Matt Schaub, congratulations. The weakest entrant on this list for sure. No, I mean, not even close. Like, even Joe Namath's better, I would say. Although actually I take that back. The next guy might be worse. The Jaguars are up next. So I wrote here, Dave, as you could see, let's be real, Trevor Lawrence will likely eventually top this list. It's not going to take a lot for him to do that. Because the 2 guys we have listed here are Mark Brunell and Blake Bortles, who have done nothing but get to a title game. Like, that's the most they've done. And they've actually both gotten to a title game and lost to the Patriots. That's what they've done in there. I don't care, really. I don't. I would say Brunell maybe, just a little bit more successful overall. Threw for more touchdowns. He did make 3 Pro Bowls, so that's why I would say probably Brunell, just leaning that way. I don't feel good about that, though.
Yeah, you have to go Brunell, and you don't have any choice because Blake Bortles was not good. So hopefully Trevor Lawrence resets that QB list, but it's Brunell for now.
I was very close to just putting Trevor Lawrence anyway. Just being like, not even knowing what it looks like on the field, like, I don't see a possible way he could be worse than Mark Brunell.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, pretty bad. Who would you rather have if I said, Dave, you need to win this game? This is a must-win game for you. And I said, you need to have Mark Brunell or Matt Schaub. Who would you pick?
I don't know.
Both of them are in their quote-unquote prime when you get them to.
I'd forfeit.
I would pick Schaub just because I think he has a better arm. That's really the only reason why. Although I played really well in NFL Blitz with Mark Brunell. Our spin and win offense was great.
I mean, the only problem is Matt Schaub threw pick 6s in like 4 straight games.
Hey, pick 6 are not the quarterback's fault. The pick is the quarterback's fault.
It is if you throw an out pass and you give him a sprinting catch to the ball and sprint.
Not every one of those was an out pass, though.
There were a lot of them that were passes to the outside, and the guy just cut in front of him.
Hey, did Matt Schaub ever show up to a game against the Patriots? Did Mark Brunell ever show up to a game against the Patriots with varsity jackets on?
No.
That doesn't work in Matt Shaw's favor, though, so I'm not sure why I brought that up. But anyway, Dave, the last team here in this bracket is the LA Chargers / San Diego Chargers. It's between Philip Rivers and Dan Fouts. Neither won a Super Bowl, neither got to a Super Bowl. I believe the farthest either of them have ever gotten are title games. Tail of the tape, Philip Rivers threw for way more passing yards, almost 60,000 to Fouts' 43,000. Fouts threw for 254 touchdowns to 397 for Rivers. Rivers did throw fewer interceptions. He had more game-winning drives. The only difference is that Dan Fouts made 2 first-team All-Pros, and he's a Hall of Famer. But Rivers will likely also be a Hall of Famer. That being said, I'm still going to go Dan Fouts.
Yeah, I would go Dan Fouts too, but I did really enjoy watching Rivers play.
Yeah.
It just felt like at the end he was kind of hanging on by a thread for too long, but Dan Fouts, I think, gets the slight edge. But neither one really ever helped when it mattered most. So I would say Fouts, but I wouldn't blame anyone for picking Rivers.
Yeah, I just think Fouts was probably a more important quarterback to that franchise and had some bigger wins and bigger moments. All right, Dave, legitimate arguments. We have the Arizona Cardinals, and there are 4 guys here. We won't go through all of them. We'll just pick our winner here. We have Jim Hart, Neil Lomax, Carson Palmer, and Kurt Warner. To me, and you could say recency bias plays a role here, I would still say Kurt Warner, just because I think he had the highest highs of any of these quarterbacks. Carson Palmer was really good. Lomax, Hart, they were good players, but I still think Kurt Warner's 4 years in Arizona were the best any quarterbacks played on that team.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with you. I think Carson Palmer was pretty good for his short tenure there, but Kurt Warner took them to a Super Bowl. The one thing that gets me is he threw a lot of interceptions while he was there, but I think part of that was they weren't always good while he was there. Like the first couple of years, I don't think they won 7 games. So I think when you look at it, you have to balance out, like Kurt made a Super Bowl, but Carson Palmer also had them in contention every year he was there. So I think it's kind of like pick your poison there. But I would probably go Warner just because I think although the interception numbers are heavily slanted toward Carson Palmer as far as throwing less, I think Kurt Warner's numbers and overall ability to lead the team to where they want to go probably favor a little towards him.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Bears. The genesis of this episode, the Bears. 3 names. Jay Cutler, Sid Luckman, and Jim McMahon. To me, it's Jim McMahon. He only played 6 years there, but he did win a Super Bowl. His numbers aren't gaudy. He did make a Pro Bowl. But the Bears are maybe among the weakest franchises here. I can't say Jay Cutler was better. Didn't make a Pro Bowl. He was kind of just there in Chicago. And Jim McMahon had that fiery personality too. And I think if you're trying to pick a Bears quarterback to represent the franchise through its history, as much as Sid Luckman was really good during his time and he had 3 Pro Bowls, I got to go McMahon here.
Yeah, McMahon, I think, is probably the easiest pick of the group. I think Sid Luckman, obviously, none of us were around to see him play. But it certainly, to me, is not Jay Cutler. Even though his numbers look a little bit better, we have to factor in the fact that pretty much from like 2007 on, it's been passing numbers going up exponentially every year. So I think some of those are skewed a little bit, but it's Jim McMahon because he won a Super Bowl, and that's what matters, like I have said before.
Pete Rozelle would not like this pick. No, he would not.
No.
Bengals, Dave. 4 options for you.
I don't know. I think this one's pretty easy, I think.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me read the name first for the listening public here. We have Ken Anderson, Andy Dalton, Boomer Esiason, and Carson Palmer. Let me think. Are you going to pick Boomer Esiason?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dalton and Palmer at least deserve mentions because Andy Dalton, as bad as he was, did get the Bengals to the playoffs a few times. And Carson Palmer was a number 1 overall pick. If it wasn't for him getting his knee shredded on the first play of a game in whatever year it was, 2005, 2004, who knows what the Bengals do that year. And Ken Anderson did get them to a Super Bowl, so that deserves mention as well. But I think when you think Bengals quarterback, the first guy you think of is Boomer Esiason.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think the other ones really stack up as well. Like Ken Anderson is probably second on that list.
Yeah.
But I think Carson Palmer, to me, was better in Arizona, honestly. And I don't think Andy Dalton was anything special. Like I don't think he gets respect for being a decent quarterback, but I'm not going to say he was anything more than that.
Yeah. He's another guy who made 3 Pro Bowls. And I need like a documentary, true crime documentary about how that even happened. Because like I don't even believe it. Like I think somebody doctored the Pro Football page. So yeah, we're in agreement. Boomer Esiason, congratulations. I know you're listening. The Dallas Cowboys, Dave. There's 2 guys here. Captain America Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman. One's a 2-time Super Bowl champ, one's a 3-time Super Bowl champ. One has 21 game-winning drives, one has 20 game-winning drives. One threw 153 touchdowns, the other threw 165 touchdowns. Very similar careers. The only big difference is Aikman threw 10,000 more passing yards, but again, that was more of the era that he was in. So who's your pick, Dave?
This is a tough one, I think. I would go Aikman.
Yeah.
Just because I think his numbers are a little bit better. Obviously, it's like you said, you have to kind of pick through the needle, find the needle in the haystack because you're kind of comparing different ages and eras and different caliber of players and offenses. And but I would go Aikman. I think just by a hair. I think he has one more Super Bowl, which 3-2. I'm not sure that really drives much discussion, but I just think Aikman was overall maybe a tiny bit better, but they both had their drawbacks. Like Aikman obviously had the concussion problems, and he had maybe a little bit longer of a career left if he stayed a little healthier. But and he threw a little more. He had a few more interceptions. His turnovers were kind of more prevalent than Staubach, but Staubach was just so legendary. Like that guy, if you put him in any era, he would succeed because he was just an awesome player. But I think this is the toughest one we had to pick yet.
So I think you have to take into account another bomb into the Green Monster. I don't even know who hit this one. Ooh. Hunter Renfrow with the cycle wash tonight, Dave, apparently. According to Dave O'Brien. Anyway.
About damn time.
Not to date ourselves here. But something else to take into account is that Roger Staubach served 4 years in the Navy before he even touched the football field in Dallas.
That is true, yeah.
Who knows what his career would look like if he played those extra 4 years. That being said, I will... I'm actually going to go Staubach. I think just because of that 4-year gap that he didn't play, I think that is like the ultimate what if in Cowboys history. Like what if Staubach played those 4 years? What if, would he have another Super Bowl? Would he do this? Would he win another NFL championship? Whatever. I'm gonna lean Staubach. I think it is remarkable how close their careers were, though. It is remarkable looking at their numbers, how similar they were, with the exception of the passing yards, really. And Staubach threw. Aikman rather threw about 36 more interceptions than Staubach too. But it's crazy how similar those careers are. It's the Raiders, Dave. The Oakland, LA, Vegas Raiders. 3 guys come to mind. Well, really 2. Derek Carr deserves a mention. Nothing more than that. No one's going to pick Derek Carr to be the best Raiders quarterback ever, but whatever. Jim Plunkett and Ken Stabler are the 2 guys. Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs, but did not get to the Hall of Fame. And Ken Stabler won an MVP, was a first-team All-Pro, won a Super Bowl, is in the Hall of Fame. So is it Kenny the Snake Stabler or is it Jim Plunkett in your book, Dave? I go Ken Stabler.
Yeah, I would go Ken Stabler too. I think Derek Carr's out of this discussion.
I had to put him there just because.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea how skewed numbers are between now and then, I don't think anyone would argue that Stabler and Plunkett were awesome QBs and really good players in the field. And Carr threw 170 touchdowns to 71 interceptions, and Plunkett had 77 to 86. So like that gives you an idea of just how different the times are, and sometimes these numbers get skewed. Like if you're comparing 70s to 2000s or like 80s to 95, like it's just every era is a little bit different. And from like 2006 on, like I said, the numbers just really blew up and the passing game blew up. So, but I would go Ken Stabler here too as well. I just think he did it all. He was a Super Bowl, he's an MVP, Super Bowl champion. I mean, rather Pro Bowl or MVP, All Pro. He really did it all, and he played the whole decade for the 70s, which was an awesome era of football.
Yep, Ken Stabler. Check him out. Philadelphia Eagles. Sean Clayton's ears are ringing somewhere. To me, it's down to three guys. Cunningham, Jaworski, and McNabb. So all three of those guys, I believe all three of those guys. No, Cunningham didn't make a Super Bowl with Philadelphia, did he? It was just Jaworski and McNabb that made Super Bowls, I think. Really, it's interesting to look at their numbers. They're all generally similar. I mean, obviously McNabb threw for more yards, but also he had 100 interceptions to 151 for Cunningham, and 105 for Cunningham, 151 for Jaworski. But Jaworski gets on the list because he did get them to a Super Bowl. Cunningham was kind of a game-changer quarterback, and McNabb was probably the best pure passer they've ever had. So interested to see what you think here, Dave.
I know a lot of people are going to say McNabb, and there's some Jaworski people, but I'm going to go Cunningham here.
Yeah, me too.
I really enjoyed Randall Cunningham, and I think he was like one of the best overall quarterbacks of do it all. Like before anyone really could run the football, he was like that guy that did it efficiently, not just like run the ball just to do it. And I just think McNabb, I was never like a huge fan of his, and it's kind of surprising to see only 100 interceptions. You'd think it'd be more the way he threw the ball, but I would go Cunningham here.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cunningham, you don't get quarterbacks like Michael Vick or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson without a guy like Randall Cunningham. Like it doesn't happen. I mean, he is the guy that really broke through. Like Tarkenton was good at what he did, but Cunningham was just incredibly dominant at what he did. It's a shame he never got to a Super Bowl. He never got to a Super Bowl. Should have gotten there a couple times, but didn't. The Tennessee Titans, Dave, / Houston Oilers / Tennessee Oilers really comes down to two guys. It's McNair or Warren Moon. And I didn't write it on here. Warren Moon is a Hall of Famer, right? Or no? Is he not a Hall of Famer?
I think he is.
I thought so too.
I'm like 99% sure he is.
Warren Moon, undrafted, by the way.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. 06 he got elected.
So he's a Hall of Famer. 33,000 passing yards, 196 touchdowns, 21 game-winning drives, 6 Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame. And then Steve McNair played 10 years, 27,000 passing yards, 156 touchdowns, 103 interceptions, 18 game-winning drives. He was a co-MVP one year. I think the edge here has to go to Warren Moon just because he's a Hall of Famer. Even though Steve McNair did guide them to a Super Bowl, that is true. But it's like I have like 51-49 Warren Moon, in my opinion.
And Steve McNair was also really, really underrated for just how he was as a player over his career.
Sure.
But I'm going to go Warren Moon as well. I really enjoyed watching Warren Moon, and I thought he was awesome as well. So I'm going to go Warren Moon, but like you said, 51-49 kind of thing. Steve McNair was a great leader, too. Gets underrated a lot of times. But I'd go Warren Moon slightly.
Rest in peace to Steve McNair. Great quarterback and an incredibly tragic story as well. And lastly, Dave, the Washington football team. To me, it comes down to Joe Theismann, Sonny Jurgensen, and Sammy Baugh. And I still go Theismann here. What about you?
I would go Theismann as well. I think Sonny Jurgensen is probably second. Sammy Baugh is probably a little bit further down to third, but I would say Jurgensen and Theismann is actually really a pretty close race overall, and I kind of would go back and forth, but I think Theismann overall probably has my vote. I think his peak was just a little bit better than Jurgensen's, but both were obviously phenomenal quarterbacks.
Well, there you have it, Dave. That's our breakdown there. Our no-brainers, our thanks for playing, our I could be swayed, and our legitimate arguments.
Why are they trying to get the ball back?
I don't know. We're live still, so I can try to determine that when we're done.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, that was our baseball second with Emily. I don't know. It could be a different ball. You don't want that ball. It could be
No,
wet. It could be
it sounds like somebody hit, what is that, Hunter that hit the home run?
Oh, it might have been like his 1,000th hit or something, or some milestone.
The Detroit stand.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, don't.
Well, that's what happens. Those Detroit outfielders, man, they're just trying to screw over Runter Renfroe. That's his name. Hunter Renfroe. But anyway, Dave, that does it for our discussion on the quarterbacks of today and yesteryear. Where can the people find you?
You can find me at David_Albiani on Twitter.
9-figure deal with Twitter, exclusively on Twitter. You can only find Dave there, not Facebook, not Instagram, not LinkedIn. Actually, no, you can find Dave on LinkedIn. Don't go looking for him there.
You can find me on LinkedIn if anyone's curious.
Very professional headshot, too. I think it's also your Twitter profile. But you can find me at Jacob_Morocco, the podcast, that's CSL Podcast on Twitter, CSLpodcast.com. If you're watching this, which is great, we have Jeopardy 50 up tomorrow. If you're listening to it, Jeopardy 50 today, or it happened in the past. We'll be releasing that as an episode, too, because, yay, 50, what a milestone. Seth Rosenthal's back for that one. Very excited for that. I got a good game board for you guys. So it'll be fun. Until then, you guys keep listening. Go 5-star, review, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll talk to you later in the week. All right, let me just end the broadcast. Thanks for watching.